When Mythical Island first came out a couple of weeks ago, I don't think anyone had Gyarados EX emerging as the best new deck from that set. And yet, here we are with Gyarados EX absolutely crushing it in the tournament scene. So today, we are going to be looking at Gyarados EX. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com, and this YouTube channel is primarily known for creating Pokemon TCG content. Most of the time I'm playing on Pokemon TCG Live and helping new players level up their game. But I also love Pokemon TCG Pocket, and I'm trying to share my thoughts and opinions and hopefully get new players from Pokemon TCG Pocket to play it a little more competitively. So welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the Pokemon TCG Pocket content, and if you're interested in learning how to play Pokemon TCG proper, check out some of my other videos as well. But if you want to just stick to Pocket videos, I have a bunch of those as well. Anyhow, let's go and talk about Gyarados EX. This is a huge Pokemon. It's the stage 1, and it's got 180 HP, which rivals it with a number of stage 2 Pokemon in the game. And it has this monster attack, Rampaging Whirlpool, where it does 140 damage for 3 water and a colorless energy, and you discard a random energy in play off of that Pokemon. And that could be your opponent's Pokemon, it could be the Pokemon that's about to get knocked out, it could be the Gyarados, and that does make things a little random, a little weird. More often than not, it doesn't hurt you, and even if they discarded off the Gyarados, usually you just reattach and you swing anyhow. You're going to be one-hit KOing a lot of multi-prize Pokemon in the format right now, so you are doing incredible stuff there. We also have Magikarp, and that's what you evolve Gyarados from, and Magikarp is the opposite of Gyarados. It has a pathetic 30 HP, and that makes it a very easy target to KO. You really don't want to leave it stranded in the active for long, and you can't even leave it on the bench for too long, because in response to Gyarados being super popular, there are a number of sniping Pokemon that are now more popular than ever, like a Hitmonlee, like a Zebstrika, that can one-hit KO Magikarp off of the bench. This one has the attack Leap Out, where for 1 water energy, you can switch this Pokemon with one of your Pokemon on the bench, helping you retreat a little better. But when you've got the Magikarp in play, you really want to evolve to Gyarados as fast as you can. Helping you set up that massive attack cost on Gyarados EX is Druddigon. This is the best new wall Pokemon in the game. It's got 100 HP, and that rough skin ability means that when your opponents attack into it, Druddigon does 20 damage back to your opponent, softening them up, getting them into Rampaging Whirlpool range for that big KO later on. We do not run any fire energy in this deck, so we can't attack with Druddigon. We are strictly using it here as a wall. And then we've got the Greninja line here as well. Greninja has the ability Water Shuriken, where you can drop 20 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon anywhere on the board. Really great for bench sniping. We can also use that Misstep attack from time to time for a water and a colorless, just does 60 damage. And there will be times where you'll use it to clean up some Pokemon that Gyarados wasn't able to take out while it was still active. Or sometimes you just need a single prize attacker to skew the prize race, and Gyarados can, or Greninja can do that. Otherwise, we've got a pretty, well, I guess I was going to say a pretty familiar set of trainer cards, but actually that's not the case. We do have Professor's Research, which lets you draw 2 cards. We have Pokeball to get our basic Pokemon down, but then we also have Misty, which is a card we have not talked about yet on the channel. Probably the most polarizing card in the game right now. You flip a coin. If heads, you get to attach an energy, a water energy, to one of your water Pokemon, and you keep flipping heads, or you keep flipping coins until you hit tails, and you will attach a energy for each heads that you hit. This is an absolutely game-breaking, game-defining card, where if you hit heads a bunch of times, you're probably going to win the game. But thankfully with Gyarados specifically, if you brick on them a bunch, it's not necessarily the end of the world, because you do have the Druddigons and potentially even your Greninja walling off for you a little bit, so you've got a bit more time to set up. And then last but not least, we have Leaf, which is a new card in Mythical Island, which reduces your retreat cost by 2, making it a free retreat for Druddigon. And if you have to retreat the Gyarados for some reason, you only have to discard 1 energy instead of 3. So your general game plan is that you want to set up your wall Pokemon. Ideally, you have 2 Druddigons on the board so that if they play Sabrina, you can just switch between the 2. Get down a Magikarp, get down a Froakie, and build up the Gyarados. You're really only building up 1 Gyarados throughout the match, and then building up 1 Greninja for sniping and then as a secondary attacker. And ideally, you come in with Gyarados at the right time, take that massive KO, and Greninja can help you break stalemates where both players are standing on the sidelines, like waiting for the other one to go first. Greninja can just like snipe them and force them to be more proactive, or you can just take out smaller targets entirely. So this deck is very strong. I think the biggest challenge I have, like, one, is the bench sniping that has become prevalent because of Gyarados. Magikarp is just a sitting goldfish when those Pokemon are in play. But also setup can be a little dicey at times because you do have 6 different basic Pokemon, and there will be times you just don't get the Magikarp in time, and that can be a problem. But if you can get your wall established and get Magikarp in, and even if you brick on your Misties and you're just steadily attaching energy, you can hold the line long enough that Gyarados can come in and still sweep a number of different matchups. All right, let's get to some matches. And we are starting with just a Froakie, but we do have 2 Pokeballs in a research. So that's really nice for getting our pieces out of the way while getting them in play. And we are up against a Celebi deck. And Celebi's an interesting matchup here. Celebi absolutely has what it takes to take out a Gyarados. But Gyarados can also one-shot a Celebi, and both of these decks are kind of slow. Celebi can ramp up a little faster than Gyarados. But yeah, it really depends on how quickly each deck can get set up, and the Superior is such a game changer for the Celebi deck, making things a little more realistic. We do get down our Magikarp, which is nice. We got a Druddigon as well. And I think that in the immediate term, I would probably want to play Misty on the Magikarp and then retreat the Froakie into the Druddigon as our wall. And yeah, we do have the Gyarados there, so we evolve that right away and take that potential threat off the board. Let's see what... Oh my goodness. I have such miserable luck with Misty. And now we need like a whole 4 turns potentially in order to build this Gyarados up. And I end up choosing to put the Froakie down so that in the event that they play a Sabrina, we don't lose our setup here. So at least we would still have the possibility of getting a Greninja online. Though Greninja not as important in this matchup because the incremental... Yeah, Celebi decks usually have a ton of healing, and the incremental damage doesn't really matter all that much. Their targets, like it's either a Celebi EX, which has 130 HP, and you're one-shotting that no matter what, or your bench targets are all pretty beefy as well. Our opponent completely whiffed on the coin flips. Druddigon stays alive, and that could fall at any time, so we do have to be mindful of that. We're going to play Research, draw some cards, and we get another Magikarp and another Greninja. We can't do anything with those cards right now. And it's really starting to look like we're just going to have to manually attach 4 cards here. And I'm not looking forward to that prospect, especially against Celebi, where they're going to get to a point where, yes, the randomness will even out, and they will eventually get to one-shot territory on the Gyarados as well. And so they've got 3 coin flips. They need to hit 2 for a KO here, and they whiff. And now they've gone 5 straight, and I'm thinking like, no, they're gonna pop off on the next turn, right? Like, there's no way they're going like 8 in a row or like 10 in a row. Okay, so we build up, we get the Frogadier out, which is nice. We can start to set up the Greninja, and right now it's just a matter of us hanging on and needing that time to set up here. If they get the Superior out, this is going to get very messy, and then they get 8 coin flips. They still, 4th energy is nuts, right? They only have to hit 50% of their coin flips in order to take this KO here. Actually, I think it's, yeah, it's 4 coin flips. You hit 2, 3, 4 wins. So, and they hit 3 that time. They take their big KO and they soften themselves up a little bit. Again, that math doesn't really matter. Maybe there's a world where between Drudicon hits and Greninja sniping that Greninja could take out the Celebi by itself, but the math isn't really mathing here for us. We do top deck a Misty, and that's fantastic. If we can hit 2 heads on a Misty here, we could then hard retreat the Froakie, and we brick again. Okay. That said, we do have the Water Shuriken. We can start softening some things up, and it kind of doesn't matter, really. Like, yes, technically the Servine, I think, has more HP, but that could also evolve up to Superior at some point, and I expect it to evolve to Superior at some point in this match. So we go after the Dhelmise, which has a fixed HP, and they get down to second Celebi, which is going to be important for them to maintain their momentum. And let's see where they put the energy. Like, at this point, I would start building up the second Celebi. 4 energy is a good number, and one of the big mistakes playing Celebi is just overcommitting on the first Celebi, and then you get caught with your pants down and don't have anything to attack with on the following turn. So after a certain amount of energy, you kind of have to back off and say, okay, I've got enough I need to spread this out a little more so that I've got a sustained offense for the rest of the game. They end up healing. Again, doesn't really matter in the context of this match. Gyarados will come in and one-hit KO the Celebi on the bench. Assuming that we get KO'd here. Just barely. Good job, Froakie, hanging in there. And yeah, bringing out that second Froakie ended up being beneficial so that we could set up, just have a little more time with this Gyarados on the bench without it taking any damage. And now this is going to be very difficult for our opponent to deal with for the rest of the game. Right, we're taking out a 4 energy Celebi right now. And even if they get the Superior on the board, that's 4 coin flips. They have to hit all 4 coin flips in order to take out this Gyarados. And even if they play Sabrina and they bring in the Greninja, they have to hit 3 out of 4 coin flips in order to knock out the Greninja. So they are going to need luck on their side in order to steal this win. But yeah, right now this is looking rough for Celebi. At the very least, they've got to attach to the Celebi to get 2 to 4 attacks off here. And our opponent plays the Sabrina, so they are going for the easier target. Do they also get the Superior down? Okay, we'll wait for it. And no, they don't. They're just swinging with the... This is unfortunate for our opponent. Although not the worst play, because even if they didn't one-hit KO us here, we did discard an energy off of ourselves with the last Gyarados attack, so we can't detach and switch at the same time if we didn't have a leaf. But unfortunately for our opponent, we have both of our leaves in hand, and that's going to make for a free retreat into Gyarados stomping out this Celebi for the win. So we'll take that. GG's. Our opponent put up a good fight there, and we weren't able to get that second Druddigon in time to wall off, but we did get lucky. Our opponent did flip. They had some bad flipping on previous turns, which gave us a bit more time to set up our Gyarados to take those big KOs. GG's. We are going first here, and this one is against a Dragonite deck. And again, I pre-record these, and I was admittedly I was at the in-laws place playing the game while recording these, so I don't fully remember what happens here. And I do find each time we do this, when watching these after the fact, that I kind of disagree here and there. And I know there's a moment in this that I immediately, when it happened, I was like, ah, no. We played research, draw some cards. We didn't get a Magikarp out, which is unfortunate. We do get a Drudagon, and that can help protect our Froakie from potential damage later. That being said, this is a Dragonite deck. At least at this point, it looks like a Dragonite deck because we got the Drudagon, we have the Lightning Energy. Lightning Energy doesn't work with Drudagon at all. And I think there's two other things here, actually, because, like, I retreat the Froakie into the Drudagon, but I didn't really have to do that at this juncture, not this early, and I definitely didn't have to play the Misty. I'm still mad at myself for that. I was admittedly in the middle of a conversation playing and just flipping, and then I realized, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have saved the Misty for potentially when the Magikarp drops so that we can power it up and regain some momentum here, because neither of us have our main attacker on the board. Our opponent plays a Professor's Research, and they get down their Dratini, so now we are behind. Yes, we do have our Frogadier up, but that's not our main attacker. And we do have the Greninjas online, which is nice. We do get to send some damage their way. I think it's damage counters. And let me go and double check the screenshot here on my end. Yeah, it's 20 damage. Okay, so there's no damage counters. At least, yeah, Gyarados drops damage specifically. Because there is an interaction that happens a little later where if they play blue, does blue... I don't think blue stops the bench damage stuff from being less. I could be wrong. I mean, we'll watch the footage and see how that interaction works specifically. That's something I'm going to keep in mind here. So our opponent negates that damage, which is fine. We do get a Drudagon, and that helps prevent any sort of Sabrina plays, but our opponent... realize Dragonite doesn't really care because they're swinging everywhere anyway. And we're just going to keep the pressure on the Dragonair here. And the big thing is that we want to get them down to 140 HP so we can eventually one-shot them with the Gyarados. So we'll just keep sending shots their way. And a Misty would have been nice right there to help power up the Gyarados, but unfortunately I foolishly burned it on the Frogadier earlier. They get their Dragonite up, and now we're a little bit behind on our tempo, which is kind of horrifying. But we top deck a Misty, and that's fantastic. That could potentially get us back into the game. If we hit heads at least once, we can put ourselves in a position where on the next turn we get in Leaf and we start to swing. And we hit heads only once, which is fine, There are times Misty is such a crazy card that even if you hit heads just once, that level of ramp can be enough to break a game wide open. And that gives us one extra turn. We can go in. If they don't swing first, like if they don't have a retreat option here, we could go in first and really get the momentum in this matchup here. They heal again. They get the Dragonite down to, or get it up to 140, but they burn both their potions. They have no more healing available to them at this point. So we are in the clear. We should be in the clear and should be able to one-shot this Dragonite going forward. And right now, just kind of waiting. Are they going to pivot? I don't think they can pivot. I can't remember if they've played a support. They played blue. So this is the interaction. -10 from attacks. And I don't think the Greninja's not going to soften it up, because the Greninja's, yeah, it's not an attack. It's an ability. It's the effect of an ability. So the -20 doesn't help there. And I kind of don't agree with the playing the blue, because the Gyarados is going to knock out the Drudagon anyway, and you're not doing any less damage from the Greninja, so it kind of doesn't help your game plan overall. We use Leaf to pivot the Gyarados in, and they return fire with the rough skin, but it's not going to be enough to make a meaningful dent, like change the complexion of this match. The Draco Meteor needs to hit Gyarados all 4 times in order for them to win this matchup. Anything less than that, and Gyarados is just going to one-shot the Dragonite on the following turn. So they play the blue, and again, that's not... At this point, it's not going to matter. We've sent them enough shots, and unfortunately, it splits 150-50, and that's going to keep... Everyone stays alive, and Gyarados can take the massive KO. And just in case, soften things up with the Greninja for the snipe. I don't attach any extra energy. And we slam for 130 damage that time, minus the 10 from blue. And they've got no more Pokemon on the board. And we win. So, again, Gyarados can be a slow deck to set up, and that was a little slower because I screwed up and burned my Misty, the first Misty, at a bad time. We also didn't get the Magikarp down, and that's a thing that can happen with this deck. It can take a while sometimes to find those pieces, and you can be in trouble. And I think one of the most horrifying things is against the fighting deck, or any deck that has sort of bench sniping, is just absolutely terrifying. But in this particular matchup, it's another slow building deck trying to build up their Juggernaut, and the Greninja was fantastic there in helping to snipe the Dragonite, the Dratini, over and over again to keep its HP low enough so that eventually Gyarados could take that one-hit KO. And when the time came, unfortunately, just the randomness of that Draco Meteor was such that they were not able to one-hit KO the Gyarados, and we were able to crush them for the win. GG's. We've got a Druddigon to start. No Froakie, no Magikarp. We do have a Professor's Research and a Pokeball, and we're staring down the other end of a Druddigon deck. Druddigon is everywhere. Druddigon might secretly be the best card of Mythical Island. When I did my best of cards in Mythical Island, I didn't even really think of it as a wall Pokemon. I just saw its attack and was like, nah, this is too much. But no, it's an amazing, it's the best wall Pokemon in the game, and it facilitates strategies like the Gyarados and like this Golem deck that we are up against. The Golem deck is one that I do want to cover at some point as well. If I haven't, it's Gyarados is going to be the one that's up next. We hit on Pokeball and we get the Magikarp out, which is fantastic, and we can start building momentum. Hopefully we get another. We don't get the Druddigon here, unfortunately. And we could leave that space open. I kind of wanted to leave that space open because I'm horrified for a Hitmonlee to come down and snipe out this Magikarp, and we might need to put a second one down. Especially now that we don't have a Gyarados in hand. But, yeah. Okay, we've just got Misty, and we get the Frogadier up. That's good. And where this is important in this matchup, the Greninja is important in this matchup because Golem swings for 120 plus takes 30 less damage. Unfortunately, we brick on the Misty again, and we just kind of have to chill out here and wait, slowly building our Magikarp. The Greninja can fix some math here because Golem takes 30 less damage after it pulls off its big attack, at which point Greninja can't, or Gyarados can't, Gyarados couldn't one-shot it anyway. But we can get that closer and potentially one-shot if we can get enough shots in and if our opponent doesn't heal enough. So Greninja is now online, and we can start throwing those shurikens across the board and sniping down that Graveler. Again, still slowly building up the Gyarados. We only need one more turn. On our next turn, we've got the Leaf. We can start to swing if we so choose. And they've got their Golem out. And they play Potion. No, they fully healed. That's really annoying. And Brock, so they are fully online. They're not going to be able to switch this turn. But yeah, now we have to decide. Are we gonna sit back and wait? Are we gonna... And we do have that. We could sit back and wait for them to make the first move if we wanted to. And that might be the smarter move here, actually, is just keep using the Greninja shots and force them to go up first. I decide to go up first and swing here. We go for the Rampaging Whirlpool, and the energy discard comes off of the Golem and not off of the Gyarados. So that's something to keep in mind, right? They have to attach to Golem here in order to attack, but the way this is playing out, they swing on the Gyarados. They're not going to one-shot the Gyarados. We are not going to one-shot the Golem. And at that point, we're kind of hoping that the Greninja can finish off the rest of the match here So they take 30 less damage, and that's going to be really annoying. But we can Greninja here to soften up the Golem further, making it easy for Greninja to potentially take that KO later. And yeah, Greninja is... Yeah, we're going to start building up the Greninja here as well. And I'm thinking about it. Yeah, we should probably set up for the Greninja. And there is a chance that the game forces us to discard that energy, and that would suck. We go for the swing anyway, and it discards the energy off the Golem again. So now in order to keep the momentum, they have to attach to the Golem. They put down the Marshadow, and they could maintain the... Oh, no. And this was a massive mistake right there, is that they attached to the Marshadow thinking they had 4 energy on the Golem, but they don't. And now they can't attack, and they are done. GG's, big mistake there. And that's such an easy thing to mess up. And I've messed that up too, fighting against Gyarados, where they discard that energy off of you and you're just not prepared for that. You're thinking 2 steps ahead, and they tried to get the Marshadow ready, not realizing that, oh, I still need to get this Golem online now that that discard happened. And it's actually kind of backbreaking for them, because if they could have used the Brock potential, if they had Brock in hand, they could have played Brock attached to the Golem and then attached to Marshadow from hand in order to maintain that momentum. But if they didn't have the Brock in hand, then they would have been cooked, because Greninja would have come in, taken out the Golem, and they would still need 2 more turns to accelerate energy to the Marshadow, and Greninja can Water Shuriken plus attack to take out a Marshadow there. So they were in big trouble regardless. But big mistake from our opponent, not recognizing that their Golem had lost an energy on the previous turn, and we end up taking the win. GG's. There we go. That is a look at Gyarados EX in Pokemon TCG Pocket. This is a big brooding deck with a ton of damage potential, and I do think that it's found some really amazing partners in Druddigon and in Greninja, and I think this shell is going to be very strong for some time. I'm not sure there's going to be other ways of playing Gyarados. Initially, I thought we were going to be playing it with Starmie, Articuno, and then moving energy with Vaporeon, but that hasn't really materialized. That this whole core with the Druddigons and the Greninjas feel great more often than not. So I foresee Gyarados being a serious threat in the metagame for the foreseeable future. It's already been performing incredibly well in tournaments, and I think people kind of have it in that S tier alongside of decks like a Mewtwo and the Pikachu. I don't necessarily know if Gyarados is better than either of those decks, but Gyarados is definitely a problem. And if you're able to play the Gyarados, if you like playing the Gyarados, you're going to have a good time, because it's an incredibly strong deck that is a force to be reckoned with. But for now, I got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Also, Happy New Year!